Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show, Tumor Bored with Hilario and Aneesh. I'm your co-host, Aneesh.
And I'm Hilario.
This is our first episode of our show, and we are really excited to have you join us on this journey. For our first episode, we want to talk to you about why we're doing this. We're both friends and resident physicians in radiation oncology who work together. And the idea of this show came about when we were just talking with our co-residents on a regular work day about our lives in and out of medicine. Though we do enjoy what we do, sometimes medicine can be all-consuming. So this podcast is us really shooting the breeze about what makes us tick, how we got to be young doctors, our interests in and out of medicine, and really where we go from here.
Right. All right. So do you think this show can also be for patients?
I think patients would enjoy listening to our show because it gives them a better idea about their doctors and who they are.
All right. So, someone might ask, why did we call this show Tumor Bored, right? And I think, looking at the way Tumor Bored is done, right? Tumor Bored, you get a bunch of doctors, oncologists specifically together, right? We have doctors that treat with chemo, doctors that treat with radiation, and doctors that treat cancers with surgery, right? They get together, they talk about complicated patient cases. They talk about sometimes even the mundane ones, right? And some of the interesting aspects of the treatments that they offer in patients, right? And so in one way, we are moving away from medicine and purely talking about patient cases. But in another way, we're mirroring the whole sitting down and like talking about the complicated things about our lives and the interesting things about our life and even sometimes the mundane things about our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the origin really of the name Tumor Bored with Hilario and Aneesh, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So, as another dimension to this show is that, we're hoping that we'll be able to interview other physicians too as well. We are young budding oncologists, right? But we would like to talk to other people from other specialties, right? And get an idea of what it is that they do on the day-to-day, what makes them tick as well, the challenging things about their specialties, right? And, some of the things that they wish their patients even know, right? So that's something that a patient can hear and at least learn something about what their cardiologist is thinking about when they meet them, right? And we can also go into the world of finances because we know as doctors, even though we are professionals and we're really good at what we do in medicine, one of the things that doctors don't know much about is finances, right? And so you get these high earners, right, who can manage their finances properly, right? And so they're not independent when it comes to money, right? So that's something that we can also, maybe talk about and maybe get some people to come and share some of the stories about finances on here as well, right? And we can explore things like medical jargons, right, in medicine, right, for our patient listeners, right? And kind of see how we can bring something to the table for the people that are listening to us, like go on about our lives and medicine.
So for this episode, we thought it would be cool for the audience, all you listeners out there, to get to know us a little bit better. So I've been friends with Hilario for a couple years now. We actually met on the residency interview trail, and we both interviewed here and actually met then, but we only became friends when we ended up at the same residency program. That's right. And though I know him pretty well, there are definitely stuff that I do not know. So Hilario, where are you from? I mean, I know where you're from, but can you tell the listeners?
So I grew up in a small village in Ghana. So I guess I consider myself Ghanaian, even though I've been in the United States for about 11 years now. I am Ghanaian at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where you said a small village,
Right.
was this, what did you do? What did your family do there?
Right. So, Ghana is nothing like America, if you haven't noticed. But yeah, so I grew up in a small village, southwestern part of Ghana. Most of the people there are farmers or fishermen. My family was primarily farmers, so we grew crops like cassava, corn, right? We call that maize actually.
Maize, okay.
Yeah, maize, yeah, instead of corn. And plantains, bananas, pretty tropical foods. Usually primarily grow crops to feed your family, right? And whatever is left, you usually sell that to someone else within the village, right? And so that you can get money to buy fish because you're not a fisherman, right? So that's kind of how I grew up, right? There are some people that actually are into purely livestock, have like cattle, sheep, or goat, right? So that's kind of like where I grew up. A very small village, maybe like not more than 1,000 people.
Wow, that's pretty small.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Did you have any animals that you were growing specifically?
Yeah, so I used to tell people that I was a shepherd. And that's like really me being generous here, because I think the most sheep that I had was probably like around 15 to 20 of them.
15 to 20 sheep.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sheep.
Yeah, well, but the other people that I consider shepherds, right, they had a lot more. They had probably like 100 of them, right? Mm-hmm. But in any case, so I got a sheep when I was like maybe around 8 as a present from my grandmother, right? I thought it was going to be a pet, but my grandmother had other ideas, so that sheep grew, and then it bred with another male, sheep, right? And the next thing I knew, it had babies, and then within a couple years, there were probably like 8 of them running around in the household. So I had to take care of them, right? So I was the main...
Well, so you were 10 years old with a bunch of pet sheep.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah. So I was 10 years old with sheep. But that's the kind of thing that you do when you grow up in that kind of the world, right? You go to the farm with your grandmother, right? Or your parents, and you raise livestock if you can. So, people raise your children as a way to take over from whatever business, whatever farm, or whatever fishing, a business that they had. So that was the kind of like a natural thing for me. Right? I didn't think, I was 10 years old and I was like raising sheep, right? So yeah.
So then, how did you go from being in a village raising sheep to come to the U.S. and being a doctor?
I feel like I get this question every once in a while when I'm on an interview for like at a med school or for like for even undergrad or my residency interviews, where I mentioned I grew up in Ghana, and the whole trajectory of the interview just goes into how did you manage to grow up there and then end up in the United States doing what you're doing right now, right? So my parents were teachers, right? So, most people grow up in my village, you become a fisherman, you become a farmer. But my parents, because they were teachers, I guess they saw some value in also some form of formal education. So they kind of impressed it upon me to like go to school, right? So, they bought books for me to read and all that kind of stuff to kind of encourage me to get into the academics. And then, eventually my dad got the opportunity to come to the United States, and that was my pathway to get here. So I went to high school in a boarding school in Ghana. So most high schools in Ghana are boarding schools. So I spent my time in boarding school, I met some really good friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
They lived in the city, right? So they had more access, right? So I lived with one of my friends to kind of write the SATs because I knew my dad was here, right?
Mm.
And that was kind of like my way to get into the education system in the United States, and the rest, they say, is history.
So you didn't have electricity really growing up, right? I mean, now you're a radiation oncologist, probably the most technologically advanced field. So how did that happen? When did you start, even using Microsoft Word?
So, yes, you're right. So if you grew up in most cities in the early 90s, right, you have some electricity in Ghana, right? If you grew up in a village, you had none, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until maybe like late 1999, maybe 2000, that's when we first had electricity in our village, right? And I just remember it was very intriguing. My dad got electricity, and he had a light bulb in the ceiling, right? And I just kept staring at it. We don't need to get kerosene anymore. Kerosene, right? You put kerosene in lanterns, and then you turn it on, and that was our light, right, at night. And that was so intriguing. And my dad, I remember my dad talking about how this is all because of science, right? Science is what gives you the light, right, that you have on the ceiling. So yeah, so obviously there isn't if there wasn't light, there wasn't computers, right, when I was growing up. But I think over time, as I went to high school and I moved to the city, that's when I became really familiar with the use of computers. But I would say that I still didn't know, Microsoft Word. I didn't really use it for anything because, nobody was really asking me to write anything on the Microsoft Word. I did write a few things here and there for my application, personal statement, right? I wrote something on there, but I really wasn't really familiar with the process of doing and writing everything on a computer. So that was really a real culture shock in my undergrad here in the United States, getting used to doing everything on the computer as opposed to writing it down, right, and handing your
I can imagine
your homework to your professor or whatever, right? Yeah,
I can imagine. So I know you like sci-fi. I know you like Star Wars. Did you know what Star Wars was when you were growing up, or was that only when you came here?
I got introduced to Star Wars by my wife.
Really? Yeah. So only somewhat recently then?
Yeah, maybe in the past 5 years.
Oh, wow.
yeah. But I did like sci-fi in general, right? So, like I said, a little bit of my interest in sci-fi really started probably the 2 years that I spent in the capital city before I came to the United States. And so, yeah, it's a very young history in sci-fi. But yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want the audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think if that one thing that I would tell people about me that I think is interesting is that I really love soccer, what I call football, right?
You are wearing a jersey.
Yes, I am wearing a jersey, and this was supposed to be like a plug for Arsenal FC. So I am an Arsenal fan. Arsenal is a soccer team in England, they're in London, not London specifically, and I pretty much watch them every day. Even their training sessions, I watch all of that, right?
So mega fan.
Yeah, I really like, and I really got the opportunity to watch them this summer in Baltimore. So if anybody wants to talk about soccer, I'm your guy. And I also play soccer in a citywide league where we're at now. So yeah, I really enjoy soccer, and you can wake me up in the middle of the night and I'll talk soccer with you.
That's good to know.
Yeah. enough about me. I want to know who Aneesh is. Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Not as interesting life story.
Oh, come on. You were interesting to me. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So, you kind of tell me, how did you grow up?
I grew up in a suburb, pretty populous suburb, to be honest. And, it was nice. I grew up really with a lot of my extended family right by me. A lot of them immigrated around, my dad immigrated from India, and a lot of his siblings immigrated maybe a little before him or a little after him. So it was really nice, all of us various age groups, but they really kind of kept me grounded, and kind of growing up was fun with them.
Mm-hmm. Where do you guys grow up?
So mostly central North Jersey.
No such thing as central Jersey. I feel like I always say this, and you always keep repeating the fact that you grew up in central Jersey.
I did grow up in central Jersey because it is a thing. For those of you who know, you know.
Okay. All right. All right. So, what did you do for fun when you were growing up?
Yeah, growing up, I used to be fairly quiet. I am an only child, so never had, any siblings in my house to really keep me active. So honestly, I used to read a lot. I used to wake up every day reading a book, a habit which I'm trying to reintroduce now, but it's something I did used to do. I used to play rec basketball, tennis a lot, and really just kind of hang out with my friends.
Oh, good. Cool. And you say your parents immigrated from India. How old were they when they moved here? Do you know?
Yeah, my dad, I believe, was somewhere mid-late 20s, and my mom as well. Then they met in India, they got married, and they came here.
Oh, nice. And in terms of just kind of like your upbringing, you're only child, but you did have a lot of cousins and your people. So who and how did you get interested in like medicine and all that kind of stuff? Yeah,
so, I did have couple aunts through marriage who were physicians, but they never actually influenced me. That was not an influence in my decision of going to medicine. I do have an older cousin who is a cardiologist, but she also was not a impact on me entering medicine. It was really, I think my time exploring in college and kind of shadowing physicians that really convinced me to apply to medical school.
Gotcha. So what in college did you do that really got you into going to medical school, or what convinced you to go into medical school?
Yeah, so I did this shadowing program. It was actually a lottery system. So I gave my name, and they didn't pick everyone. I think they only had space for about 50% of the people to put their names in, but I was one of the names, and they paired me up randomly with a breast surgeon. So the breast surgeon, he focused on basically cancer-related surgeries like mastectomies. And my first day with him shadowing, we went to the operating room, and I saw a double mastectomy and some of the reconstruction. And honestly, it was really, really neat experience for me. And then I followed him in clinic and all this other stuff. But eventually other things happen and decide to apply.
Oh, cool. If I went through what you just described to me, I feel like that would have actually put me off medicine, watching double mastectomies.
It was definitely interesting. I did not think I was going to be standing on the stool for as long as I was.
Yeah. So did you want to be a surgeon after you met this person, or it just kind of like sparked something in you that you wanted to do medicine?
It sparked an interest in medicine, not necessarily surgery, but I think it sparked an interest in medicine and oncology.
Okay. Gotcha. That's pretty cool. I did not actually know that about you, even though we've been hanging together for a while now. So right now, Aneesh, I enjoy soccer. Like I already mentioned, I try and play soccer like at least once a week, right? I watch Arsenal when I get the opportunity to do that. All right. What do you do for fun these days?
Yeah, these days, I have actually been playing tennis in my free time. There's a park nearby, and I do enjoy it. Went to the U.S. Open last year to the finals, and that was a lot of fun.
Right.
I also have been going down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos on home designs, even though I don't have a home right now. But the tidy home movement is very interesting to me. I like to engage with like movies and shows on kind of a deeper level, and I do enjoy kind of exploring other countries, like other foreign cinema and things like that. I'm a big audiobook and podcast listener, and hence, we're starting this. But I try and do one nonfiction followed by one fiction and kind of alternate with that. Right now I'm learning Spanish, and it's not going too badly, actually.
Oh, yeah?
So we'll see where that goes.
You want to say something to our friends out
No,
there?
it's okay.
No, you don't? Okay. All right. I don't want to embarrass you. But, yeah, that's pretty cool. What's the show you're watching these days?
Well, I'm watching The Umbrella Academy, which I know is a few years old, but I recently got into it.
You never saw Umbrella Academy?
It's been on my list, but I just haven't watched it.
Wow, I'm jealous because I really did enjoy the Umbrella Academy. Recently, I don't have anything that I'm watching that is new, but I went back to a really old show of mine, Grimm. It's kind of like a spin-off of the Grimm's Tales. But I really did enjoy that in college, and I just kind of like, it's not just like watching those old episodes that I know what happens in them, but also remembering like the feeling that I had at the time when I was in college, watching that with my roommates and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like reminiscing.
Reminiscing, right? Reminiscing on all that. So it has like an added like feeling to it right now, and I'm watching that with my wife, which is fun.
Right,
so
makes it better.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully, the audience have learned something about us, right? And maybe relate a little bit to us. I am putting this out there. If you want to talk soccer, if you want to watch Arsenal, I'm down for it. We're excited to bring you guys along this journey, this show, if you want to call it, and kind of share experiences and learn from each other. All right. So what's the next episode going to be about, Aneesh?
Yeah, next episode, we're going to dive deep on why we chose medicine, why we chose oncology, specifically radiation oncology, and really that work-life balance that's so important when choosing this career.
All right. And that's something that we're going to learn more about, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thought the reason why you went into radiation oncology was because you care about people.
Tune in next week.
All right. So this is the end of the episode for today. Thank you for coming along, and we'll see you next week. Bye.